Hi everyone, so I wanted to post this video to touch base on where I'm at and to talk about something that was requested of me. So this video will probably be posted on both of my channels and is kind of the beginning of this next phase where I'm going to be on the road in a month or so. But we have a little bit of ways to get to that, and I will be posting videos in between then. I am down to 3 cards left, and 2 of them I'll be designing and finishing today. And then I'm going to be collaborating with somebody on a couple of the textures on a couple other ones while I wrap them up and then get ready to send them out to print, hopefully in a week's time. So that means that my schedule is reopening a little bit here. As you could tell, I kind of have not cut my hair. I figured if it's good enough for athletes, it's good enough for me here finishing this project. So I kind of went on a haircut strike, but tomorrow that gets done. But anyway, so I will be starting up with readings tomorrow, and I will be posting in the next couple of days back up to speed. In fact, I will be testing out filming outside first locally, and then I will be getting the tent out and doing dry runs to kind of figure out how it's all going to work. But first steps first, we're going to be outside tomorrow. I'm going to start doing some reading, so you will see them posted in a few days. I also wanted to talk in this video about something that was requested in the comments of the last video, which is maybe a little bit about my background and how I became a freelancer. And so this is why I'm posting this video on both channels, because I feel like it's a good, semi intro, even though we're a little ways deep in these channels, into kind of my background. Okay. So spoiler alert, in terms of how to become a freelancer, I'm going to give you some tips, some brief tips at the end about how to do that, potentially. However, the spoiler is that really it's just a matter of following your intuition and following the steps and the path laid out before you, because that's what's going to lead you to where you need to be. Okay, so I'll explain that. So I went to Syracuse University. I graduated with a graphic design degree, and then I ended up working in my hometown for a year or so and moved then to New York City, where I became a designer at a local gay magazine there. Moved my way up to art director, kind of consolidated the departments, and over the course of 8 or 9 years, ran the department myself without anyone under me and nobody breathing down my neck. So I kind of had a lot of control there, but it became a lot of work and magazines were kind of being phased out. So during the course of my time there, I was able to gather a lot of potential freelance clients. At the time, I didn't really know that they would be that, but I made a lot of connections, networked, and found that friendships and collaboratory situations at the magazine would later turn into some freelance clients. So over the course of my time at this magazine, I was dating somebody and ended up going to visit them via a bus ride from New York City to DC. And the interesting part of the story is this is where the turning point happens, and it happened years before it even came to pass. On the way back, I was sitting behind these 2 guys, this couple, and I noticed them on the bus, and we didn't talk the whole ride. There was no real reason to. It was really early in the morning. I didn't know them, and I just noticed that they were there. Obviously, they were sitting in front of me. And as we got to New York City and we were going into one of the tunnels, I think it was the Holland Tunnel, it could have been the Lincoln Tunnel. Anyway, as we're going in, this woman that is sitting to the side of me, not next to me, but in the next to me on the other side of the aisle, after doing nothing all bus ride, gets up and starts frantically screaming that there's a bomb on the bus. And so we're headed, this is as it's getting dark, right? We're heading into the tunnel. It's getting dark, or it is dark now in the bus, right? We're getting the lights in the tunnel. And she's frantically now going up and down the aisle saying there's a bomb on the bus. We have to all get off the bus. And so obviously we all didn't know what to do. And it was kind of this moment of is she serious? Is she crazy? Should we be concerned? And what it ended up doing was it caused everybody to focus on what was happening in that bus, right? And so it gave me a chance to talk to the guys that were in front of me, because we were all kind of standing up. We were all aware of our surroundings, and thus they became aware of me. I became aware of them. And so we started talking, kind of commiserating, kind of, calming each other down a little bit, although for the most part we just thought she was crazy. And so we ended up exchanging names and got to know each other after we left the tunnel. She quieted down, and that was the end of that. She sat down and didn't say anything until the end of the bus ride. So it was weird because it almost seemed like, in hindsight, that she kind of got crazy so that me and this couple could meet, right? Okay, so it ends up being that after the magazine, I thought that my next step would be to go to a more national or global magazine. And so I ended up getting a job at Condé Nast. They do magazines like Vogue, Details, Brides magazine, which was where they slotted me, but they were consolidating job roles. And in my previous position, since I had consolidated so many jobs, they thought that I could be the first person to try this out in their company. So it was a great opportunity, but it was not the right scenario. In fact, it was terrible. It was the worst experience in my life. I got the job in end of July, August, and in December of that year, 6 months later, I was quitting. And it was unfortunate because somebody kind of helped me get my foot in the door, and there were nice people there, but unfortunately the art director was a little bit cold, and I think she thought that because I was consolidating roles in her department under her, she was a little bit threatened by that, even though I was totally fish out of water and had no idea what I was doing there. It was such a foreign atmosphere. So just a quick story here about sort of a situation that was a good indication that I wasn't in the right place. Condé Nast is obviously the Devil Wears Prada company, right? It's the kind of what that movie was based off of. It's Anna Wintour is the creative director. Was at the time, I think. I don't even know. I don't follow it anymore. But at the time I was working there, she was. And so she did her rounds. And the first time she came in to check our magazine, it might have been my second or third week in. And I wasn't aware of everyone's little everyone scatters when she comes, and it's all freaked out and all hectic and all this stuff. And I wasn't really in that mindset. That wasn't who I am. I'm somebody that's just very upfront and open, and I don't find any reason to need to do that. But the point being that when she came in, I was setting up the board, I guess, as the grunt work, as the new person does. And she came in, and I immediately put down my stuff, and I went over to her and I said, "Hi, I'm Charlie Piazza. I'm new here. I just wanted to introduce myself and say hi." And she shook my hand, and her assistant took his glasses down, looked at me. It was one of those moments of I can't believe he just did that. And so afterward, that was what really started kicking off my art director's a little bit hesitation around me, or maybe she thought I was being cunning or whatever. But multiple people came over to me and was like, "I can't believe you did that. What happened? We heard that you went up to her." And I just thought it was so silly. It was just so overblown that it was my first real indication that this was not where I needed to be. It was not an environment that was conducive to my natural tendencies and my natural way of being. It wasn't something that was going to sing to my soul. It was, in fact, going to lead me down a dark path. And so what happened was, as I was kind of crumbling in this position, I was really finding myself in a dark place. I mean, it was a cutthroat environment, and it was, who could you step on to get to the top, and all this stuff, right? It was just so, cutthroat is the word. It was just really cutthroat. And so I was really depressed. I was really in a very, very dark place, and I kept connected to one of the guys that was sitting in front of me. And we had hung out maybe a couple times over the course of maybe 4 or 5 years after that moment we had met, but just kept in touch very, very casually and very intermittently. And so as I'm in my dark place, he messages me, probably hadn't messaged me in about a year or so, messaged me to see how I was doing. And of course, at that point, I couldn't hold it in how I was doing. And I really told him that I was struggling. And he told me he wanted to meet me for coffee the next day, or I think it was for lunch the next day. And I did that. And he said, "Well, have you ever thought about freelancing? Have you ever thought about doing your own stuff and working for yourself as a contractor? You can make more money." I said, no, I never really thought of it. I have some networking clients that I'd kind of made and connections I'd made in my previous job, but never really thought to do that. There was always a security in having that weekly paycheck, having, an actual corporate environment to kind of go to every day. Didn't realize, although I kind of did realize that it was killing me. So I ended up taking his advice because he ended the conversation with telling me that his company, a pharmaceutical company, would be my first client, that he would love to work with me. And so 6 months after getting that job, I quit and I went freelance with the security a little bit of having a pharmaceutical company as a client and his kind of support in getting me into this next stage. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even thought about it. And so it's funny how years pass, all that stuff happened on the bus, and it was really helping me in making a connection that would come to fruition down the road, years down the road, and in a way I never would have expected, but didn't realize how much I would need, right? And so I went freelance. He was my main client. I ended up using some of the clients that or some of the people I had networked with and made connections with over the course of my time in Next Magazine and Condé Nast, and made my way that way as it was kind of early stages. And at this point, I'm fully a contractor for Regeneron. They're my only client. I do a lot of work with them, and it's a great situation. And so what I want to say is that's why I say in the beginning, it's more about being aware of what your environment is trying to get you to do or get you to recognize and to be aware. The big message of my channel here, this tarot channel and this travel channel, whichever one you're watching on, is awareness, right? And it's all about understanding that you just have to be clued into what's happening around you, and you don't have to try too hard. You really don't. You just need to be there to capitalize on the paths that are laid before you, right? Because that lady got crazy on the bus and everything went haywire, and all I had to do was be aware that the situation was giving me an opportunity to connect with people, even if it wasn't a duress situation, because you never know where that's going to lead. You never know where something's going to lead you, right? You never know what that's going to turn out to be in the long run. And I didn't know at that time that, yes, I had made a friend, I had made a couple friends, and I had made a friend that lasted past, the time of that time period. But I didn't know that it was going to be somebody that would change the course of my professional life, and that would, turn what was a dying, situation, a dire situation, into something that I'm flourishing in, right? And so the big thing is to be aware. The other thing you can do if you want to become a freelancer and you're not sure how to get your foot into that pathway is to just start looking at your connections and see where you have networked already connections that will potentially be options for you to freelance your work from. Do you have somebody that's self-employed and has their own business? Do you have a connection to a local business? Are you, part of a club that can, commission out work? It depends on what you're doing and what your field is, but you could start to look at how the connections are already there in place for you. And then for others, you can try Upwork, you can try some of those websites, but my caution with those is they're a little bit underpaid in that a lot of people will work for low wages on those websites. I would just say that the best thing that you can do is to try to see where your value is and how you can offer that to potential clients. It also reasons that you would probably be best suited to have a little bit of a savings, right? Have a little bit of a cushion, because it's not going to be easy. Even with me, even though that was a godsend situation and I was able to really hit the ground running, it was still slow going at first, and the work wasn't even pouring in from that pharmaceutical company quite as much as it is now, right? It's slow going at first. And so if you don't even have that initial connection, you can understand how it would be very important to have a safety net and to not step into the unknown without having all your ducks in a row. That's not always the case, but in terms of your financial security and your comfort in terms of living day to day, it's a very important thing. And then it's a matter of seeing where your value is, how can you start producing whatever you're going to be doing, and how can you then shop it out to potential clients, right? Ask your friends, ask your family, right? Don't be afraid to inquire in those areas that you already have in your life, because it doesn't have to be, people want to help out, right? People, even though it may seem like people are all about themselves, and at Condé Nast it seemed like everyone was out for themselves, in general, people want to help others. And don't be afraid to ask, and you're really gonna have to shed that fear if you want to freelance and you want to get yourself out there, especially if you are really starting from scratch. It's gonna be very important to be able to sell yourself in a proper way, and in a way that shows that you have confidence in what you do, and that shows you are proud as well as sure of yourself. It's vital to really making an impression on people. And so that's just a little bit about my history. I hope that helped. Stay tuned. There will be readings in a couple days, in a few days max. And so I'm happy to get back on that horse. And thank you for staying with me. Thank you for being subscribers. And I'll see more of you very soon. Bye.